My name's Kuhlman. I'm the CEO of Monax, and I'm here to talk a little bit about Hyperledger Burrow for the next 15 minutes or so. A little bit about my company, Monax. We were the first to market with a permissionable blockchain. We were building permissionable blockchains back when no one had any idea that this was a business tool whatsoever. We were the first to market with scalable packages of smart contracts that can be used as accelerators for a wide variety of use cases. So we've really been focused for a long time in how do we use and reuse and re-enable different uses of, in particular, Solidity-based or EVM-based smart contracts. And finally, we're the first to build and market blockchain technology as a real enabler for legal tech, which is what right now is predominantly what my company does. On the back end of that, we also maintain two open source libraries, one of which is Hyperledger Burrow, which is what I'm going to talk about today. And another is Blackstone, which is a business process execution engine written entirely in Solidity, or EVM code for those that are interested. I want to talk about really three things today. So first is, what are the potential avenues for application builders to scale their applications into the market? And then I want to give a quick overview of what Hyperledger Burrow does and how we feel that that brings a real dimension and set of capabilities that have been lacking historically, with a focus on application developers that really want to build stuff for the market. And then finally, close that loop by talking about one of the gaps, or the gap that Hyperledger Burrow fills in the market. So if you're building a blockchain application, and that might be in healthcare, or it might be in insurance, or it might be in financial services, you really have two kind of things that you have that you can think about when you want to take that to market. Or two ways you can take that to market. One of which is that you build a solution that is batteries included and opinionated about the DLT framework that underlies your particular platform or application that you want to send into the market. And what this means is that you can, on the one hand, very clearly and simply build, from an engineering perspective, this closes the amount of surface area that you have to do, which is really important, as anyone that's actually been in a startup knows. This is crucial and vital. The challenge, though, is that we are, despite being quite a few years into this game, we're fundamentally still at the very early stages of people's understanding of blockchain solutions and the nuanced differences that happen or evidence themselves in the choice of one DLT framework vis-a-vis another DLT framework. And so if you take this approach, this opinionated approach, you essentially have to not only sell the utility, the individual utility that your application or platform has, but also you potentially and most likely have to sell your choice of DLT framework as well. Because when you go to talk to potential buyers, they're going to say, well, it's great that you build this on Fabric, but I really like Sawtooth, or I really have heard that Corda is the thing, or we know that Burrow is the best thing since sliced bread. Or vice versa. Whatever choice you make, you're going to have to justify that choice when you go to sell into the marketplace. What's another way that you can do, and this is what we have found is actually really interesting, particularly as we see more and more DLT frameworks pick up similar smart contract interpreters. And that is that you can be a little bit less opinionated about your DLT framework. And you can say to potential buyers, look, We have a business application. It does these things. It provides this amount of value. You might be a consortia that has already chosen to leverage Fabric, or you might be a set of companies that isn't formalized yet, but all of your CIOs have said that Sawtooth is the thing that you're going to do when you do actual blockchain stuff. Or whatever the choice of DLT framework is, if there is commonality in the smart contract interpreter, then you can say to them, well, that's great, because what I build will deploy onto that particular network. And so, this is a little bit of a trade-off here, in that if you choose to take a more opinionated route, you can, in theory, spin up your system more easily, but you also have the downside that you potentially, if you don't choose the thing that becomes the thing, then you have to convince buyers why you chose that particular DLT framework. And if you take a less opinionated approach, you, in theory, have an easier time to sell because you don't have to sell the platform or DLT framework underneath your business application. You can just sell your business application. And then the downside of this is that you potentially have to wrangle specifics about how different DLT frameworks have implemented, in particular, smart contract interpreters or DSLs. You have a range of other considerations that aren't really super important, but just to quickly go, they are important, but they're not necessarily important for the point of this presentation, which is has your current and future customer base, have they settled? If you know you're selling into a market and that market is completely occupied by one DLT framework, then you don't have this choice. But I, at least in 4 years of playing this game, as I view the marketplace today, I don't see that in the market. I don't see a single area of this market that has completely settled on one DLT framework or another, despite marketing hype from some companies in the space. So what's Burrow? Burrow fills a gap in that it is fundamentally known as Hyperledger's Ethereum virtual machine. In general, how we view it as a maintainer of Hyperledger Burrow, when we're taking decisions on where we want to spend engineering time and engineering resource, what is it we're trying to do with Hyperledger Burrow? Well, we really want it to be lightweight, extensible, Byzantine fault-tolerant, permission smart contract based on a custom EVM execution engine and the Tendermint consensus engine. So let me unpack that a little bit and over the course of the next few minutes, explain what each of these pieces means to us and why we think that this is an important suite of tools to add into the Hyperledger greenhouse. So at the bottom, there's a little bit more user-friendly diagram than the next diagram I'm going to show as to what Hyperledger Burrow is. Essentially, it's an Ethereum virtual machine over a permissioning layer, over a consensus engine with sort of a kernel that manages the runtime on one end and gateways that manage interactivity on the other. So if you really like detailed diagrams with a lot of boxes and lines, here's the detailed diagram with a lot of boxes and lines. But realistically, it's more interesting to kind of unpack what the benefits and trade-offs that we've taken with respect to Burrow, what they actually are. First and foremost is Burrow is unique amongst enterprise-grade frameworks in that it is fully provably BFT. Now, some in this room may argue with that, and I'm happy to have those very nuanced quibbles. But Tendermint is one of the very few consensus engines on the market that is been proven BFT time and time again. We use that, and it is really important to us that full Byzantine fault tolerance is a first-class citizen of any blockchain solution. We build it to enable a spectrum of network instantiations. So we at Monax are building a public permission network on top of Hyperledger Burrow. It has been deployed in a range of permission scenarios or consortia scenarios, as well as in private networks typically for testing or very early stage deployments of various networks. It's built to run as a single binary. It is distributed as a single statically compiled binary. It runs actually really fast, and it's very resource optimized because we spend a lot of time thinking about that and tweaking that. It has inbuilt governance primitives, inbuilt token economics primitives, inbuilt network instantiation tooling, inbuilt network backup recovery and archive tooling, inbuilt or delegated signing tools, inbuilt application deployment tooling, and a whole range of event-driven tooling to drive downstream business systems. And when you put all this together, all of these tools are really important and necessary for folks that build applications. And we have been building sophisticated smart contract and Solidity applications for a long time now. And these tools have grown out of our own, of the needs that we have found, not only in-house, but also as Burrow has been developing over the years. Its users have requested certain tools that can do different things. But all of this you get in one single binary that is statically compiled for pretty much any architecture that we know of. Outside of Windows, it doesn't really want to run on Windows for really weird reasons in how Windows deals with some cryptographic primitives. We also have a range of cloud-native deployment monitoring and logging tooling that enables you to spin this up not only on a developer's laptop, but all the way into really wide networks ran in a cloud for testing. Where we're going with Burrow in the future, we will be implementing the Cosmos SDK. This will give us a range of interesting things that will be quite unique within the Hyperledger greenhouse. Predominantly, the capability of building an enterprise-grade network in a public setting. And so this is something that we feel is very important for sort of merging the different strands of the community. And as more of the interledger protocols start to come online, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens as there is a capability to bring the public blockchain and enterprise blockchain pieces of this overall community together, in fact, programmatically. And Cosmos is the first one of these interconnectivity protocols that is live and in production. And as it is built by Tendermint, as we are Tendermint native users and have been for a long time, it's very natural that we would implement that and have that available. We also will be building sort of higher level primitives. We have low level primitives that you can do a whole range of different things and around governing your network. We will be building higher level primitives that can do more interesting things, as well as some other sort of longer term things that we're thinking about. Advantages as a standalone framework. So Burrow can be operated as a standalone DLT framework. It is its own blockchain client. It also is leveraged by the other frameworks, by some of the other frameworks under the Hyperledger greenhouse as its EVM library. And one of the advantages that we see, or some of the advantages that we see in using Hyperledger Burrow as a standalone DLT framework is that it's fast, it's simple to use, and it's simple to boot. Burrow is not built to be a framework that has all of the bells and whistles. It's built to be a framework that is for application builders that want to build sophisticated, process-heavy use cases. And so for that, that's what we build, and that's why we, or those are the types of applications that we have built historically, and that's why we have structured Burrow in the way that we have. And the other side of what Burrow does for the Hyperledger community is that it brings an Apache licensed EVM that is built as a library that makes it relatively simple for downstream DLT builders to use as a library. And it is indeed being used as a library by Sawtooth and Fabric currently, and there is some work for Indy to leverage this as well. And so at the end, what does this give for application builders? Well, it gives you a chance to build an EVM structured application. So if you want to build a business application, and you want to do that in something that will run within an EVM, well, the benefit that you have is that that will run on at least 3 DLT frameworks from Hyperledger. It'll run on Quorum and a number of other Ethereum derivatives. And that might make it very, very simple for you to scale in the market, depending on some of your specifics. Any questions? Mm-hmm. Yep. So Fabric can be booted in EVM mode, and it can run Solidity smart contracts. And so how they do that is they have a chain code container that links their Go SDK with Burrow's EVM library, and then it subsidiarily runs Ethereum smart contracts.
You talked about BFT protocol. You use Tendermint or you have self-solution?
Tendermint. Yeah, this code base was the first to ever use Tendermint. Yeah.
Can Burrow be configured as a delegated proof-of-stake network?
Yes, but we have a little bit of primitives to make that easy to deliver. Off the top of my head, no, but probably within this year.
So Quorum is already Ethereum blockchain. Like, why would I use Burrow? Like, what doesn't make sense? Can you explain?
What? Sorry.
So Quorum is already a private Ethereum blockchain.
Sure.
Right. So now, how do I use Burrow with Quorum?
They won't work together.
Oh, they won't.
No.
So maybe you can talk about like differences, or like why would they use Burrow instead of Quorum?
You would have to figure that out on your own. I don't really have any knowledge whatsoever on the advantages of Quorum vis-a-vis Burrow. Yeah. Thank you very much. Oh, yeah.
Just on Fabric, are many people using it today? I mean, using Burrow with Fabric in any production scenarios?
I have no idea what the utility numbers are. You would have to talk to the Fabric teams, to be honest. So that's kind of way downstream for us. We have no visibility on it. Sorry. Yeah.
Probably a dumb question because I'm a little novice technically, but can you net out the smart contract interoperability that you're supporting? I'm a little confused. So smart contracts built in what, in your language, will run on which platforms?
So smart contracts built in Solidity can run on 3 of the Hyperledger DLT frameworks. They can run on Hyperledger Burrow, they can run on Sawtooth, and they can run on Fabric.
So your solution isn't really adding to that at all? I mean, you're just supporting it with Burrow. I'm just trying to figure out what you bring to smart contract interoperability with your Burrow EVM.
It depends on how you define interoperability. Burrow isn't adding anything in terms of interoperability across blockchain networks. It is a blockchain interpreter. It's a smart contract interpreter that gets booted within a blockchain network.
Okay, thanks.
Great, thanks.